The Alpha King's law is cruel. Elena Mercer said it louder than she meant to, and the entire relief hall went silent. A clerk behind the counter froze with one hand on a bottle of fever medicine. Two pack guards turned toward her. Near the door, a tall stranger in a black coat stopped walking. Elena knew she should take the words back. Omegas did not challenge royal law in public, especially not in Silverpine, where rank mattered more than kindness. But across the counter stood Mara Bennett, a widowed Omega holding her sick son against her shoulder. The boy's cheeks were flushed, and his breathing came too fast. "She has the credits," Elena said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Give her the medicine." The clerk shook his head. "No Alpha sponsor. No approved mate. No release. He's 8 years old. The law is clear." Elena looked at the red royal seal stamped across the form. Royal dependency law. She had seen it turn hunger into paperwork and grief into a waiting list. Mara lowered her eyes. Around them, people pretended not to listen. That was how the law survived. Everyone saw the damage. No one wanted to be the first to say it out loud. Elena reached into her coat pocket and placed her own ration card on the counter. "Use mine." The clerk stared at her. "That violates pack policy." "Then write me up." One of the guards stepped closer. "Watch your tone, Omega." The word landed exactly as intended. Small. Lower rank. Easy to dismiss. Elena's wolf stirred beneath her skin, not with aggression, but with shame she refused to show. She lifted her chin. "My tone isn't the problem. A child being denied medicine is the problem." The stranger by the door watched her with an unreadable expression. He had dark hair, broad shoulders, and the stillness of a man who never needed to raise his voice. He looked too polished to be a drifter, but too unguarded to be pack leadership. The clerk finally snatched Elena's ration card and pushed the medicine across the counter. Mara whispered, "Thank you," then hurried away before anyone could change their mind. Elena turned, grabbed her bag, and walked outside into the freezing night. Snow had begun to fall over the parking lot, soft and clean, covering the tire marks and cracked pavement. She heard footsteps behind her. "You speak boldly for someone with no protection," the stranger said. Elena glanced at him. Up close, his presence pressed against the air, heavy with alpha power. Her wolf went strangely still. Not afraid. Listening. "I didn't ask for protection," she said. "No," he replied. "You asked for fairness." She gave a bitter laugh. "Same thing around here." He studied her for a moment. "Do you truly believe the Alpha King's law is cruel?" Elena looked back at the relief hall, where the lights glowed warm behind frosted glass. "I think it lets powerful people sleep at night, while the rest of us beg for permission to survive." Something changed in his face. Not anger. Something quieter. More dangerous. "And if the Alpha King were standing in front of you?" he asked. Elena met his eyes. Her pulse stumbled. For one impossible second, a faint silver mark warmed beneath the skin of her wrist. The stranger noticed. His breath stopped. Elena pulled her sleeve down. "I'd tell him the same thing." The man looked toward the dark road where a black SUV waited beneath the pines. Then he looked back at her and said, "Good." She did not know that every guard in the kingdom would kneel at his voice. She did not know the law carried his signature. And she had no idea the Alpha King had just heard the one truth no one in his court had ever dared to tell him. The stranger returned the next morning wearing the same black coat and carrying 2 cardboard trays of coffee. Elena was stacking canned soup in the Silverpine Relief Center when he set 1 cup beside her. "Peace offering," he said. She looked at the label. "You guessed my order? Black coffee. 2 sugars." "That is not guessing. That is spying." The corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. "Nate Ward." He held out his hand. "Northern District Logistics." Elena stared at it before shaking. The warmth of his palm sent a strange pulse through the silver mark beneath her sleeve. Her wolf lifted its head again, alert and quiet. She pulled her hand back too quickly. "Elena Mercer." "I know." Her eyes narrowed. Nate picked up a supply sheet from the table. "Your name is on every inventory report." It was a reasonable answer. Still, something about him felt carefully arranged, as though every sentence had been inspected before he spoke it. "Why is a Northern Logistics inspector here without notice?" she asked. "I am reviewing winter shortages." "Then you picked the right building." Elena led him through the center. The front room looked respectable enough, with clean counters and blue pack banners hanging over the windows. The back rooms told the truth. Shelves meant for antibiotics held only empty boxes. Space heaters were lined up beside extension cords because the main furnace had failed twice that month. Families waited on folding chairs with forms balanced on their knees. How long have they been waiting? Nate asked. Some since yesterday. For food. For approval. Elena pointed toward an older Omega sitting alone near the wall. Mrs. Caldwell needs a heating voucher. Her sponsor moved to another state 3 years ago, but the records were never updated. The system still says she belongs to his household. Nate's expression hardened. Belongs. That is the language in the law. Elena moved to a storage cabinet and pulled out a small paper bag. She slipped 2 cans of stew and a pair of wool socks inside, then carried it to Mrs. Caldwell. This should get you through tonight. The woman looked worried. Will you get in trouble? Only if somebody asks. Nate heard that. Elena knew he did because the room went oddly still around him. He followed her back to the desk. How often do you use your own ration credits? How often do people need help? That was not my question. It was my answer. For the first time, his calm seemed to crack. Not into anger. Into something closer to shame. He looked around at the patched coats, the tired parents, the children sharing crackers from a paper cup. The reports sent to the capital say Silver Pine meets every winter assistance target. Elena laughed once. There was no humor in it. Reports do not get cold. Nate lowered his voice. Show me everything. She studied him. An ordinary inspector would have asked for totals, signatures, and compliance numbers. Nate asked which families had been denied. He asked who made the decisions. He asked what happened after the office closed. By noon, Elena had taken him through 6 months of rejected requests. He listened without interrupting, but every time she mentioned the royal seal, the scent around him changed. Cedar. Snow. Something powerful held under control. You care a lot for a man who only checks shipping records, she said. Nate looked at her across the desk. Maybe I am tired of reading numbers written by people who never meet the names beneath them. Before Elena could answer, a little boy ran into the room and nearly collided with Nate. The child stopped, stared up at him, and went pale. Then he lowered his head in the formal bow reserved for royal blood. Nate caught his shoulders before he could drop to one knee. Not here, he whispered. Elena saw the fear in the boy's eyes. She saw the command in Nate's face. And beneath her sleeve, the silver mark began to burn. Elena stepped between Nate and the boy before she had time to think. What did you say to him? The child backed toward the hallway, clutching a worn red backpack against his chest. Nate released him immediately. Nothing that should frighten him. He was about to kneel. Elena looked from the boy to Nate. People do not kneel to logistics inspectors. The silver mark beneath her sleeve pulsed again, hot enough to make her fingers curl. Nate noticed the movement. His gaze dropped to her wrist, then returned to her face. What is your name? Elena asked the boy gently. Caleb. Caleb, do you know this man? The child glanced at Nate and swallowed. I thought I did. Nate crouched so they were eye level. The power in his scent faded as if he had locked it behind a door. You were mistaken, he said quietly. Caleb nodded too fast and hurried into the back room. Elena waited until the door swung shut. That was not suspicious at all. Nate stood. Children imagine things. Children imagine monsters under beds. They do not invent royal protocol. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, wind pushed loose snow across the parking lot. The relief center furnace rattled, then went silent. Nate removed his gloves and reached for the thermostat, giving Elena another glimpse of the heavy silver ring on his right hand. A crest had been carved into its face, but he turned it inward before she could study it. The furnace needs repair, he said. Do not change the subject. I am not. You are very good at it. His eyes met hers, and the room seemed smaller. Her wolf pressed closer to the surface, not challenging him, not afraid of him, recognizing him. Elena stepped back until the edge of the desk touched her hip. What are you? Nate's expression tightened. An alpha. I figured that out. Then why ask? Because every alpha in Silver Pine makes sure people know his rank. You hide yours. His jaw shifted. Sometimes rank keeps people from telling the truth. The answer sounded honest, which somehow made it worse. Elena pulled her sleeve lower over the mark. Nate saw that too. How long have you had that? He asked. Had what? The heat in your wrist. Her pulse jumped. You cannot feel that. No, he said, too carefully. I can smell the change. Elena turned away and opened a box of medical supplies that did not need opening. Her mother had warned her about unusual scent reactions when she was younger. Strong emotions could affect an Omega's scent, but this was different. This felt like a thread being pulled tight between them. It started last night, she admitted. When you asked about the king. Nate became completely still. Has it happened around anyone else? No. The silence that followed carried more weight than his question. Elena forced a laugh. You look like I just gave you bad news. You did not. His voice softened. That is the problem. Their hands reached for the same bottle of cough medicine. The instant their fingers touched, the silver mark flashed beneath Elena's skin. Nate's eyes shifted, dark brown turning bright at the edges. His alpha scent filled the room before he dragged it back under control. Elena snatched her hand away. Tell me what that means. Nate looked at her like the truth was standing between them with a blade at its throat. It means you should stay away from me. She stared at him. That is your explanation? It is the safest answer. For who? Before he could respond, a stack of old intake files slid from the corner of the desk. One folder fell open at Nate's feet. He bent to pick it up, then froze at the name printed across the faded cover. Thomas Mercer, Elena's father. Below it, stamped in red, were 3 words she had not seen since she was a child. Royal Treason Archive. Nate's face lost all color. Where did you get this? He asked. Elena slowly took the folder from his hands. Why do you look like you already know what is inside? Elena held the folder against her chest. Answer me, Nate. He looked toward the front windows, where snow blurred the parking lot into a sheet of white. Not here. You do not get to say that after telling me to stay away from you. Elena, please. The words sounded unfamiliar in his voice. An alpha like him probably did not use it often. She should have refused. Instead, she locked the supply room door and pulled the blinds. Nate stood beneath the flickering ceiling light while she laid the file on a folding table. The paper smelled like dust and damp cardboard. She had found it months earlier behind an old cabinet, but most of the pages were missing. My father was accused of betraying the crown when I was 12, she said. Silverpine erased his rank. Our neighbors stopped speaking to us. My mother lost her job at the Pack Clinic. 3 years later, he died with everyone still calling him a traitor. Nate's eyes stayed on the red stamp. What did he tell you? That the law was being abused. Elena opened the folder. Inside were lists of denied medical requests, food shipments redirected to high-ranking households, and handwritten notes from Thomas Mercer. He said the sponsorship system was never about protecting Omegas. It was about controlling who could work, travel, and receive help. Nate turned one page carefully. This is only part of the report. You know there was more. It was not a question. His silence answered anyway. Elena felt the silver mark warm beneath her sleeve, reacting to the tension between them. Who are you really? Nate closed the folder. Someone who can find the rest. That is not an answer. It is the one I can give you today. Anger rose in her chest. People with power always say that. They hide the truth, call it protection, and expect everyone below them to be grateful. He flinched, barely, but she saw it. Your father sent his report to the Royal Council, Nate said. It was sealed before it reached a public hearing. Elena stared at him. How could you know that? Because I have seen the archive system. A logistics inspector does not see royal treason records. Before he could respond, someone struck the supply room door 3 times. Elena Mercer, a man called from the hallway. Open this door. She recognized the voice. Grant Holloway, Silverpine's beta. Nate's posture changed instantly. The quiet stranger disappeared, replaced by something controlled and dangerous. Elena unlocked the door before he could stop her. Grant entered with 2 pack officers behind him. He wore a charcoal suit beneath his winter coat and the expression of a man who had already decided she was guilty. His gaze moved from Elena to Nate, then to the open file. That document belongs to the Pack Archive. Elena stepped in front of it. It was abandoned in this building. You were not authorized to read it. It has my father's name on it. Grant's smile held no warmth. Your father's name is exactly why you should have left it alone. Nate moved beside her. Is that a threat? Grant looked him over. And you are? Nate Ward, Northern Logistics. Then stay out of Silverpine discipline. Nate's alpha scent sharpened, filling the small room with cedar and winter air. One of the officers lowered his eyes without understanding why. Grant did not. Hand over the file, he ordered. Elena tightened her grip. Not until I get a copy. You are in no position to negotiate. Nate's voice dropped. She is now. The room fell silent. Grant studied him more carefully, noticing the hidden ring, the posture, the authority Nate could not fully disguise. Suspicion flickered across his face. Then he reached for the folder. Nate caught his wrist before he touched it. No struggle, no raised voice. Just one alpha stopping another as if the outcome had never been in doubt. "You will not take anything from her," Nate said. Grant slowly pulled back. "You have until tomorrow morning to leave Silverpine, Mr. Ward. Elena, report to my office at 8. He walked out with the officers, but paused at the door. The Mercer name already cost this pack enough. When he was gone, Elena turned to Nate. "You said you could find the rest." "I can." "Then do it." That night, 200 miles away, Nate entered a secure royal archive beneath the state capitol. The guards bowed before he reached the first locked door. He found Thomas Mercer's complete report in a sealed cabinet marked for the king's eyes only. The evidence was worse than Elena knew. Several senior alphas had used the law to steal relief funds and force unprotected omegas into dependency. At the bottom of the order that buried the investigation was the name of Lord Everett Crane. Beneath Crane's signature sat one final authorization, signed 7 years earlier by a newly crowned king overwhelmed by threats of pack rebellion. Nathaniel Ashford stared at his own name until the ink blurred. He had not destroyed Elena's family on purpose. He had simply signed without looking. And tomorrow, he would have to stand in front of her knowing that ignorance had never made the damage less real. By 8 the next morning, Elena was sitting outside Grant Holloway's office with her hands folded tightly in her lap, trying not to look at the locked door across the hall. Nate had not come back. She told herself that was good. Safer. Expected. Men with secrets always disappeared when the truth became expensive. Grant finally opened his door and motioned her inside. "You embarrassed this pack," he said before she sat down. "A child needed medicine. You challenged royal law in front of residents. I challenged a clerk who cared more about a stamp than a sick boy." Grant leaned back in his chair. Behind him hung a framed photograph of Silverpine's leadership council, every face male, every rank alpha or beta. "Your father also believed rules did not apply to him." Elena went still. "Do not use him to threaten me. This is not a threat. It is a warning. Hand over every copy of that file. Stop discussing relief policy, and I will overlook your behavior. And if I refuse, then you lose this job." The words hurt more than she expected. The relief center was not just work. It was the only place in Silverpine where she had managed to turn humiliation into something useful. Before Elena could answer, the office door opened. Nate stepped inside carrying a leather folder and looking as if he had not slept. Grant rose immediately. "You were told to leave." "I changed my plans." Nate placed the folder on the desk. "Elena is coming with me. She is under pack authority." Nate's gaze hardened. "Not for the next hour." Something in his voice made Grant hesitate. Elena noticed it again, that invisible pressure that changed the room before anyone understood why. Grant looked at Nate's concealed ring, then at the folder. 1 hour, he said. "After that, she reports back to me." Outside, Elena followed Nate across the parking lot to the relief center. Snow crunched beneath their boots. "You vanished," she said. "I went to find answers." "Did you?" Nate looked at her, and the guilt in his face was so plain that her anger shifted into unease. Inside, he locked the front door and opened the leather folder. He did not show her the last page. Not yet. Instead, he spread out copies of denied claims, altered shipping orders, and reports from other packs. "Your father was right," he said. Elena stared at the documents. About all of it. More than he knew. Her fingers trembled as she touched his handwriting in the margins. For years, she had carried the shame of being Thomas Mercer's daughter. Now, every page seemed to lift a little of that weight and replace it with something sharper. "Why was this buried?" she asked. Nate looked away. "Because people in power believed exposing it would cause instability. That means they chose stability over us." "Yes." The answer came too quickly, too honestly. Elena studied him. "You sound like you were there." Nate's jaw tightened. "I know how those decisions are made." She wanted to push harder, but an older woman entered through the side door, shivering beneath a thin coat. The woman held a shut-off notice from the utility office. Elena read it and sighed. "They are cutting her heat tonight." Nate glanced at the notice. "What would you change first? The law?" "Yes." Elena pulled a blank intake form from the desk and turned it over. "Emergency aid should be based on need, not mate status." No sponsor signatures. No rank approval for medicine, food, or heat. She began writing, the words coming faster now. Every denial gets reviewed by someone outside the local leadership. Omegas get representatives with actual voting power, not ceremonial seats. Nate watched her fill the page. You have thought about this for a long time. Someone had to. She handed him the form. Why are you asking? He looked down at her proposed changes, then carefully folded the paper and placed it inside his coat. Because I think this could work. Elena gave him a tired smile. You say that like you can do something about it. Before he could respond, a young volunteer came running from the front desk. Elena, there are royal vehicles outside. Through the window, 3 black SUVs turned into the parking lot. Guards in dark uniforms stepped out first. Then every person in the relief center lowered their head. Nate closed his eyes for one brief second. Elena looked at the vehicles, then at the silver ring he had forgotten to turn inward. This time, she saw the crest clearly, a crown above a wolf's head. And suddenly, every careful answer he had given her sounded like a lie. Elena looked from the royal crest on Nate's ring to the guards gathering outside, and every instinct in her told her to step away from him. Who are you? She asked. Nate did not answer quickly enough. The front doors opened, letting in a rush of cold air and 3 royal guards in dark gray uniforms. The tallest one crossed the room and bowed his head. Your Majesty, Lord Crane has requested your immediate return to the capital. The relief center went silent. Elena heard the old furnace click behind her. Someone dropped a metal spoon near the coffee station. Nate's face tightened. Not now, Commander Reed. Elena stared at him. Your Majesty? He turned toward her. Elena, I can explain. You said your name was Nate Ward. Nathaniel is my name. And the rest? He glanced at the people watching them. Not here. A bitter laugh escaped her. You really like saying that. The guards shifted uneasily, but Nate raised one hand, stopping them from moving closer. Give us the room. Commander Reed hesitated. My king, the council believes there may be a security concern. The room. His voice stayed calm, but every alpha present lowered his gaze. The guards escorted the volunteers and waiting families outside. Elena remained where she was, her hands cold despite the heat building beneath the silver mark on her wrist. When the doors closed, Nate removed the ring and set it on the desk between them. I am Nathaniel Ashford. Elena looked at the crown carved above the wolf's head. The Alpha King. Yes. The word changed everything. The stranger who drank bad coffee with her. The man who carried food boxes without being asked. The Alpha whose scent made her wolf go still. All of it had been wrapped around a lie. You stood here while I told you what your law did to people. I needed to hear it. You could have told me who you were. Then you would have bowed, or guarded every word. You did not give me the choice. That landed. His eyes lowered for a moment. No, I did not. Elena folded her arms, trying to steady herself. Did you know about my father before you came here? Not at first. But you know now. Nate reached into his coat and placed the final page of Thomas Mercer's report on the desk. Elena saw Lord Everett Crane's signature first. Then her gaze dropped lower. Nathaniel Ashford. Royal authorization. Her throat closed. You signed it. I was 24. 3 packs were threatening to leave the alliance. Crane told me the investigation was fraudulent and would trigger open conflict. So you buried it. I signed an order I did not read closely enough. Elena looked up at him. That is supposed to make it better? No, his answer was immediate. It makes it worse. The honesty shook her more than an excuse would have. Nate stepped closer, then stopped before entering her space. I cannot undo what happened to your family, but I can expose the people who did it. I can change the law. Because I asked you to? Because you were right. The silver mark flared again. This time, Nate's wrist answered. A faint line of light appeared beneath his skin, matching hers. Elena stared at it. What is that? Nate's expression changed. The king disappeared for 1 second, leaving only a man who looked almost afraid. A bond. A mate bond. He nodded once. Elena stepped back. How long have you known? Since yesterday. And you were going to keep that secret too? Until you knew who I was. Until you could choose without pressure. You already took that choice from me when you lied. Outside, wind struck the windows hard enough to rattle the glass. Nate closed his hand over the glowing mark. You are right. His wolf pushed against the room, powerful and restless, but he did not move toward her. He did not command her to stay. He picked up the ring instead. Lord Crane knows I opened the Mercer archive. If he realizes you have seen this page, he will move against you. Elena lifted her chin. Then let him. You do not understand what he controls. And you do not understand what I have already survived. Before Nate could answer, the lights went out. The relief center dropped into darkness. From outside came the sharp sound of tires on ice, followed by Commander Reed's voice through the door. My king, the eastern road is blocked. Someone cut the power line. Nate moved in front of Elena without touching her. His alpha scent filled the room, no longer hidden. Stay behind me. Elena looked toward the black windows, where a single pair of headlights had stopped at the edge of the parking lot. Then a phone began ringing on the desk. Nate answered it. Lord Crane's voice came through the speaker, calm and familiar. Your Majesty, step away from the Mercer woman. You have already made one mistake for her family. Do not make another. Do not speak about her as if she belongs to you, Nathaniel said into the phone. Lord Crane gave a quiet sigh. That is precisely the problem. She belongs to no one, yet she has managed to turn your judgment against the crown. Elena stood beside the desk in the dark, listening as emergency lights flickered on above the exits. The red glow sharpened every line in Nathaniel's face. My judgment was compromised long before I met her, he said. You made sure of that. Crane's voice cooled. Return to the capital. Leave the Mercer file in Silver Pine, and this can still be contained. You mean buried. I mean prevented from tearing the packs apart. Nathaniel looked at Elena. The mate mark beneath his wrist glowed faintly, answering hers, but he kept several feet between them. The call is being traced, Commander Reed said from the doorway. No, Crane replied through the speaker. It is being allowed. The line went dead. A second later, the headlights at the edge of the parking lot disappeared. Nathaniel set down the phone. Reed, restore the power and secure the eastern road. Yes, my king. And no one touches Elena or the Mercer records without my direct order. Commander Reed glanced at Elena, then bowed. Understood. When he left, Elena picked up the sign page from the desk. You cannot fix this by giving orders. I know. Do you? Her voice shook despite her effort to control it. You came into this building with a fake name. You let me tell you things I would never have told the king. You knew there was a bond between us and still said nothing. Nathaniel absorbed every word without defending himself. I thought silence would protect your freedom. Silence protected you. He looked down. Yes. The admission hurt more than another lie. Elena folded the page and slid it into the leather folder. I need time away from you. His wolf reacted before his face did. The scent of cedar deepened, and the emergency lights hummed above them. But Nathaniel stepped back. You will have it. No guards following me. I cannot promise that while Crane is moving against you. Then do not pretend this is a choice. It is a choice, he said quietly. It is simply not a safe one. Elena stared at him, furious because he was right and more furious because part of her still trusted him. I am going home. Nathaniel nodded once. Reed will place someone at the end of your street. They will not enter your property. And you? I am returning to the capital to confront Crane. Elena reached for her coat. That sounds like royal business. It became personal the moment I saw my signature on your father's ruin. She paused, but did not turn around. Do not make me the reason you finally became a decent king. You are not the reason. His voice followed her across the room. You are the person who made it impossible for me to keep pretending I already was one. Elena left through the side door. Snow blew across the lot, stinging her cheeks. She had nearly reached her truck when Grant Holloway stepped from behind a parked utility van with 4 Silver Pine officers. Elena Mercer, he called. You are being detained for theft of restricted pack records and interference with royal law. She stopped. The king ordered that no one touch me. Grant held up a sealed document. This order came from the Royal Council and was issued before his command. Nathaniel came through the doorway behind her. The alpha power rolling from him made 2 officers falter, but Grant kept the paper raised. Stand down, Nathaniel ordered. Grant shook his head. Under emergency hierarchy law, the council may overrule a compromised king. The word hung in the frozen air. Compromised. Elena saw the accusation for what it was. Not only that Nathaniel had protected her, but that the mate bond had made him unfit to rule. Grant turned to the officers. Take her. Nathaniel moved forward, and the silver mark on Elena's wrist blazed hot. She knew he could stop them. Every wolf in the parking lot knew it too. But if he used force now, Crane would claim the bond had turned the king into a threat. Elena raised one hand. Do not. Nathaniel froze. Their eyes met across the falling snow. Let them take me, she said. Then come prove I was right. Grant placed a restraint band around her wrist, covering the glowing mark. As Elena was led toward the waiting vehicle, Nathaniel stood completely still. His face held no anger. That frightened everyone more. Then he looked at Grant and said, You have just given me the witness I needed. The restraint band blocked the glow of Elena's mate mark, but it could not silence the pull in her chest. She felt Nathaniel behind her as the officers guided her toward the black transport vehicle. His wolf pressed against the bond like a storm held behind glass. He did not follow. He had listened when she told him not to. That should have made her feel safer. Instead, it made every step away from him hurt. Grant Holloway climbed into the front seat while Elena was placed in the back between two officers. Where are you taking me? She asked. The Silver Pine Assembly Hall. Grant looked at her through the rearview mirror. The pack deserves to hear what you have done. You mean what you plan to accuse me of? You stole restricted records. You undermined hierarchy. You influenced the king through an unregistered mate bond. Elena's hands went cold. I did not even know who he was. That will not matter once people hear the word bond. By the time they reached the assembly hall, news had already spread. More than 100 pack members stood inside the circular chamber, arranged by rank. Alphas occupied the front rows. Betas stood behind them. Omegas and unranked wolves were pushed toward the outer wall. Elena was led into the center beneath the carved silver pine crest. The same people she had helped with food, medicine, and heating vouchers watched in silence. Some looked frightened. Others looked ashamed. Grant stepped onto the raised platform. Elena Mercer stands accused of stealing sealed pack records, distributing resources without authorization, and using a concealed mate connection to compromise the Alpha King. A murmur moved through the hall. Elena lifted her chin. I did not conceal anything. I learned about the bond less than an hour ago. Grant held up the Mercer folder. Yet she gained private access to His Majesty and persuaded him to question a law that has protected pack order for generations. That law denied medicine to a child. This is not a debate. It should be. Grant's expression hardened. Your father also believed he knew better than the crown. Elena felt the old humiliation rise, but this time it did not bend her. My father documented stolen relief funds. You know that because your office kept the file hidden. The room shifted. Several Omegas looked toward Grant. He struck the wooden rail with his palm. Enough. An older woman stood near the back. Mrs. Caldwell, still wearing the thin brown coat Elena had seen the day before. She gave me food when your office gave me forms, she said. A beta ordered her to sit down, but another voice followed. Mara Bennett stepped forward with her son beside her. Elena helped my boy when your clerk refused. Grant's eyes narrowed. This hearing concerns treason, not charity. No, Elena said. It concerns whether people at the bottom of the hierarchy are allowed to tell the truth. The main doors opened. Elena expected Nathaniel. Instead, Lord Everett Crane entered beneath the Royal Council banner, flanked by 6 guards. He was silver-haired, polished, and calm enough to make the room feel colder. Every alpha bowed. Elena remained standing. Crane studied her, as if she were an error in a report. Miss Mercer, he said, the king is emotionally compromised. For his protection and the stability of the packs, your bond must be formally suppressed until the council completes its review. The restraint band tightened around her wrist, and the ache in her chest sharpened. You cannot erase a bond because it is politically inconvenient. We are not erasing it. We are preventing it from controlling the throne. Grant placed a document on the table. Sign this statement admitting that you manipulated His Majesty, and you may remain in Silver Pine under supervision. Elena looked at the empty line beneath the confession. Then she looked around the hall at the people who had been taught that survival meant silence. No, Crane's pleasant expression faded. Consider carefully. I have. Elena pushed the paper away. I will not lie to protect men who built their power on everyone else being afraid. For one breath, the hall was completely still. Then the doors opened again. Nathaniel stepped inside wearing the black coat she had first seen beneath the falling snow. No crown. No royal procession. Only Commander Reed at his side and the full force of an Alpha King no longer pretending to be ordinary. Every wolf in the chamber dropped to one knee except Elena. Nathaniel looked at the confession, the restraint on her wrist, and finally at Crane. Release her, he said. Crane did not move. Your Majesty, the council has lawful authority. Nathaniel walked into the center of the circle and stopped beside Elena. Then let the entire pack hear how you used that authority. Commander Reed raised a small recording device. Grant went pale. Nathaniel's gaze never left Crane. You ordered the power cut. You ordered Elena's detention. And you just attempted to force a false confession in front of witnesses. Crane's calm finally cracked. You are risking the throne for an Omega. Nathaniel looked at Elena, but he did not touch her. No, he said. I am risking it because the throne was never worth keeping if this is what it requires. Crane's expression tightened, but he recovered quickly. Then perhaps the throne should be placed in steadier hands. A murmur moved through the assembly hall. Nathaniel did not look away from him. Is that your defense? It is a warning. Crane turned toward the gathered alphas. The king concealed his mate Bond, entered Silverpine under a false identity, and allowed an Omega tie to a convicted traitor to influence royal policy. His judgment is compromised. Elena felt every eye in the room shift toward her. The restraint band around her wrist seemed heavier now. Nathaniel stepped between her and the platform, but she moved beside him instead. She would not hide behind him. I did not influence him, she said. I showed him records his own counsel buried. Grant pointed at her. You had access to restricted files. So did you. His face changed. Just enough. Elena saw it, and so did Commander Reed. Nathaniel turned toward Grant. Who ordered you to remove the Mercer folder from the relief center? Grant said nothing. Answer your king. The command rolled through the chamber. Several wolves lowered their heads. Grant swallowed. Lord Crane said the file posed a threat to pack stability. Crane's voice cut in. A local beta cannot speak for the council. Reed lifted the recorder. He will not need to. We also recovered the call logs from the power station and the detention order issued from your office. For the first time, Crane looked uncertain. Elena watched Nathaniel carefully. He had enough power to end the hearing with one order. Everyone knew it. His wolf wanted action. She could feel it through the bond, fierce and protective, pushing against the restraint between them. But Nathaniel did not claim her. He did not touch her. He looked at the pack and said, No one will kneel until this is finished. Slowly, people began to stand. Alphas first, then betas. Finally, the Omegas along the outer wall. The room felt different when everyone was upright. Crane gave a cold laugh. A symbolic gesture will not hold the alliance together. Neither will fear, Nathaniel said. He faced the crowd. I signed the order that buried Thomas Mercer's investigation. Elena's breath caught. Nathaniel continued before anyone could react. I was young, under pressure, and too willing to trust men who told me stability mattered more than scrutiny. Those are explanations. They are not excuses. Silence filled the hall. My signature helped destroy an innocent man's name, he said. It left his family carrying shame that belonged to the crown. Elena had imagined hearing those words for years, but not like this. Not before an entire pack. Not from the king himself. Nathaniel turned toward her. Elena Mercer, I cannot ask for forgiveness today. I have not earned it, but I can begin with the truth. Grant shifted toward a side exit. Reed moved into his path. Crane's composure broke. You would disgrace the throne publicly for her. Nathaniel's eyes hardened. No. The throne disgraced itself when it punished people for exposing corruption. A faint glow escaped beneath Elena's restraint band. Nathaniel's wrist answered. The mate bond became visible between them, silver light tracing beneath their skin. Gasps rose across the hall. Crane seized the moment. There. Proof. He cannot separate duty from instinct. Elena looked at Nathaniel. He could deny it. He could claim her before the pack and turn the bond into authority. Instead, he removed the royal ring from his hand and placed it on the table beside the false confession. Then let us separate them now, he said. He faced the witnesses. Elena will not be claimed, confined, or placed under royal protection without her consent. She will testify as an independent citizen. The bond gives me no ownership over her. Elena stared at him. The ache in her wrist eased. Not because the bond weakened, but because he had finally stopped deciding what it meant for her. Crane looked around the room and realized he was losing control. This hearing is over. No, Elena said. She reached beneath the restraint band, found its release latch, and pulled it free. The silver mark shone openly on her wrist. Now it begins. Then the main doors opened once more, and a royal courier entered carrying a sealed message. Reed broke the wax, read the first line, and looked at Nathaniel. 3 northern packs have withdrawn their loyalty, he said. They are demanding your removal before sunrise. The message passed through the hall like a cold wind. 3 northern packs had withdrawn their loyalty, and by sunrise they intended to name Nathaniel unfit to rule. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Lord Crane smiled. There is your answer, Your Majesty. The Alliance will not survive this scandal. Nathaniel took the message from Commander Reed and read it once. His face did not change, but Elena felt the strain through the mate bond. Duty pulled at him from one direction. His wolf pulled from another. Which packs? He asked. Black Ridge, North Hollow, and White River, Reed said. Their leaders are already traveling to the capital. Crane folded his hands behind his back. They will demand that you either reject the bond or surrender the throne. Elena looked at Nathaniel. Rejecting it would hurt both of us, would it not? He met her eyes. Yes. And surrendering the throne would leave Crane in control. Crane's smile disappeared. Nathaniel moved closer to the table, but kept a respectful distance from her. You should not have to carry this. Elena shook her head. Stop deciding what I should have to carry. The words were not cruel, but they struck him harder than anger. She picked up the royal ring from beside the false confession and held it out to him. I am not asking you to choose me over the kingdom. Nathaniel did not take it. What are you asking? Choose what kind of king you are going to be. Around them, the pack listened. Elena could feel their fear, but beneath it was something new. Expectation. Nathaniel finally accepted the ring, though he did not put it on. The council will use the bond against you, he said. Then let them hear me speak for myself. Crane stepped down from the platform. An Omega does not address a royal leadership challenge. Elena turned toward him. That rule seems convenient for you. This is not a relief center debate. This is the stability of every pack in the country. Then every pack should know what stability has cost. Mrs. Caldwell moved forward from the back of the hall. Mara Bennett followed, holding her son's hand. One by one, other Omegas stepped away from the outer wall. No one bowed. Crane looked at Grant. Remove them. Grant hesitated. Nathaniel noticed. You heard her testimony, he said. You saw the records. Decide carefully what order you follow next. Grant looked at the people who depended on the relief center, then at Crane. I will not remove them. Crane's face hardened. You forget your rank. No, Grant said quietly. I finally remember what it is for. Elena had not expected that. Neither had Nathaniel. Reed stepped beside the table and spread out the recovered call logs, detention order, and Mercer report. The northern leaders will receive copies before they reach the capital, he said. They may still challenge the king, but they will know why this began. Nathaniel put the ring back on his hand. Prepare the royal chamber for a public hearing. Every pack leader, every council member, and elected Omega representatives from each district will be allowed inside. Crane gave a sharp laugh. There are no elected Omega representatives. There will be by morning. The hall went silent again. Elena looked at Nathaniel and saw the weight of the crown settle over him. But this time, he did not hide behind it. And me? She asked. You will come only if you choose to. The silver mark on her wrist warmed, steady rather than painful. I choose to testify, she said. Not as your mate. Not as someone under royal protection. As Elena Mercer. Nathaniel inclined his head. Then, that is how you will be announced. Crane turned toward the exit, but Reed blocked his path. Lord Everett Crane, Nathaniel said. Until the hearing concludes, you are suspended from the council and forbidden from contacting any pack leader. Crane looked back at him. You think one Omega can save your throne? Nathaniel glanced at Elena. No. I think the truth may cost me the throne. He stepped beside her, not in front of her. But I am done asking innocent people to pay for it instead. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the snow. Then Reed's phone rang. He answered, listened, and looked toward Elena. White River has changed its demand, he said. They no longer want the king removed. Nathaniel's expression remained guarded. What do they want? Reed lowered the phone. They want Elena Mercer brought before the Alliance alive, unclaimed, and free to speak. They say her father tried to warn them 7 years ago. White River's demand should have felt like a victory, but Elena saw Nathaniel's expression darken. They knew my father? She asked. Commander Reed nodded. Thomas Mercer sent copies of his findings to several northern leaders before the council sealed the investigation. White River kept one letter. Then why did they stay silent? Elena asked. Reed looked toward the floor. They feared the alliance would collapse. Nathaniel's voice was quiet. Everyone feared something. That is how Crane kept control. By sunrise, the royal convoy was heading south toward the capital. Elena rode in the second vehicle with Reed, while Nathaniel traveled ahead to prepare the hearing. The distance between them was only a few car lengths, but the mate bond made it feel much farther. Every time his worry pushed through the connection, she reminded herself that concern was not the same as trust. When they reached the state capital 3 hours later, hundreds of wolves had gathered behind security barriers outside the royal complex. Some held silver pine blue. Others carried the black and white banners of the northern packs. A few signs called Elena a traitor. More carried her father's name. Reed led her through a side entrance and into a waiting room lined with dark wood and old portraits of alpha kings. Nathaniel stood beside the window without his coat. He looked exhausted. White River sent the letter, he said. He handed Elena a yellowed page protected inside a clear sleeve. Her father's handwriting filled both sides. At the bottom were the words, "If the crown refuses to listen, remember that silence will become consent." Elena pressed her fingertips to the sleeve. He knew. Yes. And you still want to open the hearing? Nathaniel looked at her. I want you to decide what happens next. She laughed softly, though nothing was funny. You keep saying that now. Because I am learning how often I failed to before. A knock interrupted them. Reed entered with 2 council aides. The Northern Alphas have agreed to delay the leadership challenge for 1 hour. Crane has invoked emergency royal law. Nathaniel's face went still. Which section? Succession protection. He claims Elena must be placed in council custody until the bond is reviewed. Elena folded her arms. Of course he does. Reed continued. If you refuse, the council can suspend your authority before the hearing begins. Nathaniel looked at Elena, and she felt the decision form inside him before he spoke. Then I will step down temporarily. No, Elena said. It is the only way to keep them from taking you. You are doing it again. Elena, you are choosing sacrifice because it lets you avoid choosing with me. His expression tightened. They will lock you away. Then we expose them for it. I cannot gamble with your safety. And I cannot build a future with a man who treats my choices like another threat to manage. The mate bond pulsed between them, sharp with hurt. Nathaniel turned away, one hand braced against the window. My wolf wants to take you somewhere no one can reach. But you are not only your wolf. No, he faced her again. I am also the king who signed away your father's truth. Elena stepped closer, stopping just beyond his reach. Then stand in that room and admit it. Do not give Crane the throne because losing it feels noble. Reed's phone buzzed. He read the message and looked up. Council guards are coming. Nathaniel's alpha presence filled the room. For one dangerous second, every instinct in him demanded resistance. Elena touched his wrist, covering the silver mark with her hand. The bond steadied. Do not save me by becoming the thing they accuse you of being, she whispered. The doors opened. For council guards entered with an official order. Their captain addressed Elena. You are required to come with us until the leadership review is complete. Nathaniel did not move. Neither did Elena. I will go, she said, on one condition. The captain frowned. You are not in a position to set conditions. Then arrest me in front of the public entrance, where every pack can see what the council does to an Omega before she testifies. Reed almost smiled. The captain did not. 10 minutes later, Elena walked through the main corridor with reporters, pack representatives, and northern leaders watching from behind the railings. She kept her head high. Nathaniel followed 20 feet behind, close enough for the bond to hold, far enough to show he was not controlling her. Crane waited at the chamber doors. You could have avoided this, he said. Elena stopped beside him. So could you. As the guards led her away, Nathaniel called her name. She turned. He stood beneath the royal crest with every eye in the building on him. I will not step down, he said. Crane's face changed. Nathaniel continued. And I will not silence her to keep my crown. The chamber doors opened behind him. Inside, the leaders of every major pack were already seated. Then White River's Alpha rose and held up Thomas Mercer's original letter. Bring Elena Mercer before us, he said. The Alliance deserves to hear the truth before it chooses a king. The council chamber went silent as Elena entered. Pack leaders filled the curved rows beneath banners from every territory in the Alliance. Nathaniel stood near the empty throne, not seated above them. Lord Crane remained at the center table with a stack of sealed orders and the confidence of a man who still believed procedure could bury the truth. White River's Alpha placed Thomas Mercer's letter beside the royal record. "She speaks before any leadership vote," he said. Crane objected at once. "An unranked Omega cannot address the full alliance without sponsorship." Elena stopped beside the witness table. "That rule is part of the problem." Several leaders shifted in their seats. Nathaniel said nothing. He gave her the space to continue. Elena opened her father's original report and looked around the chamber. For 7 years, this council called Thomas Mercer a traitor because he documented relief funds being diverted from people who needed them. His evidence showed that local leaders used sponsor requirements to control medicine, housing, travel, and employment. Instead of investigating, the Crown sealed the report. She looked at Nathaniel. "The king signed that order." Nathaniel met her eyes. "I did." Crane rose. "Under extraordinary pressure and based on verified council guidance." "Your guidance," Nathaniel said. "You told me the report was fabricated." Commander Reed placed the recovered call logs and detention order on the table. Lord Crane also ordered the Silver Pine power outage, authorized Miss Mercer's detention, and attempted to secure a false confession before the PAC hearing. Crane turned toward Reed. "You participated in sealing the original report." The chamber stirred. Reed did not deny it. "I did. I told myself I was preventing conflict. I was protecting my position." He removed his commander's insignia and set it beside the evidence. "Thomas Mercer deserved a witness then. His daughter has one now." Grant Holloway stepped forward from the rear of the chamber. "I carried out Crane's orders in Silver Pine. I knew the relief system was failing, and I protected it because admitting the truth would expose my own leadership." Elena watched him carefully. "Why speak now?" Grant looked toward the Omega representatives waiting near the doors. "Because rank without responsibility is only fear wearing a title." Crane struck the table with his palm. "This alliance will collapse if every law can be overturned by grievance and emotion." Elena's voice stayed calm. "A child needing medicine is not a grievance. A family losing heat is not emotion. Those are consequences." She lifted the denial records from Silver Pine. "Your system called suffering orderly because the paperwork was complete." Black Ridge's Alpha leaned forward. "What do you propose instead?" Elena laid out the plan she had written at the relief center. Emergency aid based on need. Independent review of denials. Elected Omega representatives with voting authority. Public audits of PAC resources. No restriction based on mate status. Crane laughed. "And who will force the PACs to accept this?" Nathaniel finally stepped forward. "No one." He removed the crown from the throne and placed it on the witness table. "They will vote." Gasps moved through the chamber. "If the Alliance rejects reform, I will not use royal power to silence them. If it removes me, I will accept the decision. But the vote will happen after every sealed record is opened." Crane stared at the crown. "You would surrender centuries of authority for her." Nathaniel looked at Elena, but he did not reach for her. "This is not hers to demand or mine to gift. It belongs to everyone who lived beneath laws they were never allowed to question." The mate marks on their wrists began to glow, visible across the chamber. Crane pointed at them. "There is your proof. Instinct is ruling him." Elena stepped away from Nathaniel, placing several feet between them. The silver light remained. "The bond did not write my father's evidence. It did not forge your orders. It did not make those families cold." White River called for the vote. One by one, PAC leaders raised their hands to open the archives and suspend the dependency law. Black Ridge followed. North Hollow hesitated, then joined them. The majority was reached before Crane understood he had lost. Nathaniel did not smile. "Lord Everett Crane, you are removed from the Royal Council. You will hold no PAC office and control no public funds." Crane's voice turned bitter. "That is your justice?" Elena answered him. "No. Justice is every person you ignored receiving what they were denied. Your punishment is living long enough to watch it happen." Reed escorted Crane from the chamber without spectacle. Then White River's Alpha lifted Thomas Mercer's letter. "The Alliance formally clears his name." Elena closed her eyes. For one moment, she was 12 years old again, watching neighbors turn away from her family. When she opened them, Nathaniel was still waiting by the empty throne. "The leadership vote remains," Black Ridge said. "Does Nathaniel Ashford keep the crown?" Elena expected fear through the bond. Instead, she felt acceptance. Nathaniel looked at the gathered packs. Before you decide, Elena Mercer has one final condition to present. She turned toward him. I never said I had another condition. No, he replied. But I think you should. Elena glanced at the crown between them and understood. The lock had changed today. The meaning of the throne had to change with it. She faced the alliance. Then my condition is simple. No king stands above the truth again. The chamber remained quiet after Elena's condition. No king stands above the truth again. The words were simple, but they reached farther than any royal command. White River's Alpha rose first. Then the crown must answer to the alliance it serves. Black Ridge followed. North Hollow joined after a long pause. By the time the vote was counted, Nathaniel Ashford still held the throne, but the throne no longer held unchecked power. Every sealed royal order would face independent review. Every district would elect an Omega representative with a real vote. Emergency aid could no longer depend on rank, sponsorship, or mate status. Nathaniel picked up the crown, looked at it for a moment, then placed it on his head. He did not sit. Thomas Mercer's name will be restored in every pack record by sunset, he said. His family will receive a public apology from the crown, including one from me. Elena felt something inside her finally loosen. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. It was the end of carrying a shame that had never belonged to her. 3 months later, the old Silver Pine Relief Center reopened as the first Mercer house. The broken furnace had been replaced. The shelves were full. No one needed an Alpha's signature to receive medicine, food, or heat. Mrs. Caldwell volunteered at the front desk. Mara Bennett managed family assistance, and her son Caleb took great pride in showing visitors where the hot chocolate was kept. Grant Holloway had lost his position as beta, but he stayed in Silver Pine and worked under the new public audit board. Redemption, Elena learned, did not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looked like a proud man sitting at a small desk, correcting the records he once ignored. Commander Reed stepped down from the Royal Guard and became the first director of archive transparency. Lord Crane was barred from leadership and assigned no special protection from the laws he had defended. He was not destroyed. He was made ordinary. For a man who had built his life on being above others, that was justice enough. Elena became the first royal advocate elected by Omega representatives across the alliance. She kept her office in Silver Pine, not the palace. Nathaniel visited when his duties allowed, always arriving through the front door and always waiting to be invited inside. The mate bond remained unfinished between them. He never pressured her, never used it as proof that she owed him anything. One snowy evening, Elena found him outside Mercer House beneath the same kind of pale streetlight where they had first spoken. You are going to freeze, she said. I have survived colder meetings. That is not the same thing. She handed him a paper cup of coffee. Black, with 2 sugars. He smiled. You remembered. I remember most things. The meaning settled between them. Nathaniel looked toward the warm windows, where families sat together without asking permission to feel safe. I used to think leadership meant carrying every decision alone, he said. That was how Crane controlled you. Yes. He looked at her. And how I hurt you. Elena took a slow breath. You cannot change the day you signed that order. I know. You cannot give me back my father. I know. But you can spend the rest of your life making sure no one else is erased that way. Nathaniel nodded. That is what I intend to do, whether you choose me or not. The bond warmed at her wrist, gentle and steady. Elena reached for his hand, not because destiny demanded it, not because a law named them mates, because he had finally learned that love was not protection without permission, and power was not leadership without accountability. I choose you, she said. Nathaniel closed his fingers around hers, carefully, as if the choice mattered more than the bond. And tomorrow, he asked. Elena glanced at Mercer House, where the door remained open against the cold. Tomorrow, I will probably tell you another law is unfair. He laughed softly. I would be disappointed if you did not. They walked inside together, not as a king claiming an Omega, but as 2 people willing to keep choosing each other after the truth. Years later, people would remember the law that changed, the council that fell, and the king who nearly lost his crown. But Elena remembered something quieter. A frightened mother receiving medicine. An old woman receiving heat. A room where everyone was finally allowed to stand. The world did not become better because one powerful man saved it. It became better because ordinary people stopped accepting suffering as the price of order and because one man with power finally listened. Sometimes courage is speaking when your voice shakes. Sometimes redemption is admitting that good intentions did not prevent real harm. And sometimes home is not the place where no one has ever failed you. It is the place where truth can enter, where choice is honored, and where the door stays open even in winter.